Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, and today I'm hanging out with Vanessa from the Crafting Muse. How are you doing today?
Good. How about you?
Good. It's a nice snowy day here in New Jersey, so
Yes, it is.
I'm
We didn't
happy
lose
to be
power.
inside and not out.
You're right. That and they're not letting us out anyways.
Trapped.
Yep.
Martial law has been declared.
Yeah. Yeah. You stay inside. You're not essential.
Yeah. So I congratulate you off air, but I'll do it on air. You just hit 2,000 subscribers not too long ago, and you're under a year, or at a year?
Under a year.
Under a
Under
year.
a year.
That's
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. And it was totally not where I saw things going when I first started the channel, but I like doing it. It's fun. I'm enjoying it.
What aspects do you enjoy? Obviously, you enjoy crafting, but do you enjoy the
Yeah.
content creation aspect of it as well?
I think what really is the cool part about it is it reminds me a lot of when I used to be teaching, because I used to teach high school kids. So for me, it's like kind of going back to, okay, this is how you do something and seeing people absorb it and do their own thing with it. So I think it's fixing that Jones of not being in the classroom anymore.
What subject did you teach?
English literature, sophomores and seniors.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you're into
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah. Everyone cringes when I say sophomores. Like, why? I'm like, they're honestly like the most fun.
Yeah. You survived though. It builds character.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Cardboard Fortress says nice space background.
Thank you.
So, what prompted you to start creating content and taking your crafting online?
First it started out just because I had made something and everyone wanted to see how I did it. But then seeing how excited they were to start doing it themselves, I was like, well, let me show them something else that I'm making too. And then I realized because I have some arts background just from different classes in college and high school, I was able to bring in some other stuff that I just assumed was always kind of a known thing. So it's fun bringing in some different techniques to help people out and do some new things. Like I was using florist wire with wrap and stuff like that. And people didn't even know that was an option because I used to work for a florist. So for me, it was kind of like, oh, let me share something new with you. So that was really what kind of prompted it. And then it was just the fun of meeting really cool people and having
So,
fun interacting with them.
when you started crafting and bringing it online, were you already following other people involved with communities, or did it go the other way around?
It was, let me think about that one. Really, it was, I had just jumped into what was then Scotty's crafting group and is now the Crafters or the Tabletop Crafters Guild. So I had been in there for, I think, a couple months. So I was watching like the big four. We'd watch their stuff on our big TV in the evening after the kids went to bed. And then as I got involved, I started meeting people who had smaller channels and started following them. So it was one of those things where, yeah, it kind of progressed. Like I started following the bigger ones, but it snowballed so quickly. It's kind of hard to say how exactly it all worked out. But no, I did make a point to just kind of check in and see what others were doing and get a feel for what people were doing. But a lot of it mostly stemmed from just interacting with people in the Tabletop Crafters Guild group.
Cool. Like I know for us, like we really didn't pay much attention to gaming online until we started doing Nerdarchy. So
Mm-hmm.
we're like, oh, there's people doing this already.
Yeah.
This is a thing. I guess we can
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm having fun like learning the different things because I'm definitely newer to playing the game itself. Because that's something my husband kind of introduced to the whole family. He first started with the kids, and I saw the fun that they were having. And then he was starting to bring up stuff like, oh, let's fold some paper crafts and let's do this. And I'm kind of like, oh, you get to craft? Like,
Ah, they lured you in with the paper crafts every time. The paper
mm-hmm.
crafts.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd sit there and I'd cut it out, and he'd be the one like folding and taping or pasting everything together. So we had fun doing that, and then it started to grow.
Cool.
But
It doesn't
yeah.
matter how you get in a hobby as long as you're here.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. That's why I love it when new people come in and like, well, I'm not so sure if I should post. I'm like, no, please share what you're doing because it's cool stuff and it's great seeing what others are doing. And, it's good to get feedback and interactions with everyone who has similar interests and encourage you.
So the whole family games together now.
Yes. Yep. We have a homebrew, not a broom, game that's going. David writes it up and we play together with the kids. And this is our second campaign that we've just started up recently now. And the first one was a lot of fun. It was really cool seeing how the kids, as they're learning, were developing and growing and doing some really cool that. But then there's that crossover factor because then the teacher started saying, wow, they're getting really good at math. What's going on? Or they're really great team leaders at school and they have to work in group projects. So it's something where, because we're seeing how it's giving them confidence and it's giving them great problem solving skills, we definitely want to keep it going with them.
Yeah, well, gaming in general is definitely builds skills. So,
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
there's a reason why corporations use role playing,
Yeah.
to train for training. So
Yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
sense. So TrueMate wants to know what your favorite type of terrain to build is.
Oh, geez. I actually like doing the scatter bits, like those extra little details. Like it's all fine doing like, the base tiles and everything like that. But when there's like, oh, I could add a little something that's different, that's kind of what I gravitate towards in terms of what I really like to do. And it's probably by default because it's right now, I'm really enjoying doing like the island and ship terrain stuff because that's sort of where we are right now with our campaign. So definitely enjoying doing things where it's like, okay, let's make this look like a jungle, or this is something that can be on a ship. And I'm sure that answer is probably going to change in 6 months when we're doing something else entirely. But yeah.
So your DM, your husband, is like, hey, I need this, and that's how you decide what you're making.
Yeah, that's really kind of what pushes most of the things that I do, because they'll be like, I could kind of use one of these for the table. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, of course, it's a fine line for him because he has to tell me what he wants, and he has to also not tell me what he's doing with it at the same time. So that doesn't spoil the game for me. But I think we have it down to a pretty good system. He'd be like, hey, can you make something like this? And then I'll give him what he needs, and it shows up on the table either that weekend or a couple weekends later.
So how long has the family game been going on? I'm kind of curious about this aspect.
The first one went for a year and a half. And this one we've been doing for a month and a half now, and it's probably going to go for another long haul as well, based on everything. So I don't know how long he's planning on doing it, but he takes his notes down and everything like that. And the kids are always like, oh, we're going to game? Is this a game weekend? Are we going to play this weekend? And if the answer is no, they actually get really bummed out.
Ted's kids are like that a bit too, because he's got them started as well.
Yeah.
So that means your 6-year-old is pretty advanced, because you started, that's like 4 or 5 at least, right?
Yeah, he was like 4.5 when they started playing. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
so did you modify the rules at all?
oh, totally. Yeah. The first one, he definitely sort of brought it down a little bit. And that's also why he was sort of writing his own story, just to make it age appropriate. But then as they started playing more, things shifted. Like instead of the creatures just poof, they're magically gone. It's like, no, they're dead. And they could handle the concept of death, as opposed to you stabbed it with your rapier and it just magically disappeared. But you just kind of work on their cues. You can tell if they're starting to get too anxious or too scared with the concept. And you can see that he's sort of like quick changing it around a little bit to make sure it's not too overwhelming for him. But I mean, really, as long as you keep in their comfort levels, you can start them as soon as they're able to, play other games quite seriously.
So TrueMate wants to know, what does the the family party composition look like?
Well, the current one's pretty funny because when we finished up the last game, the boys wanted to have it where they were brothers. So we have a wizard and a cleric half-elf who are brothers, twin brothers, and they are my sons, and I am an elf ranger. And I don't know if they're watching, otherwise I give like the fun little reveal thing that we have kind of going on between me and my husband. But basically it's like right now we are working together to help out this duke who's called on me because my character in the past had known him and had helped him in various battles and wars type of thing. So I'm bringing them along. But because of where we're going, we've now made it where they don't know they're my children. They are just my associates. So that's what we have going on right now. And then David brings in other NPCs of various roles. So we have a monk, we have a bard, we have, what's the other? Basically just a fighter dwarf. So it's kind of cool seeing these other NPCs come in and out, and we get to choose which of those is kind of helping us out for which part of the session. So we all sail around on a boat.
That's definitely really cool. How long do you guys play for? How long are the sessions?
Well, that's the trick question, because with kids, you definitely have to stop. Like, you can't just sit down and play straight through like you normally would with adults. So we probably take a good weekend. It'd probably be anywhere between 3 to 4 hours total. But probably after about a half hour, 40 minutes, they need their mental break just to kind of walk away and decompress for about 15 minutes, maybe even like a half hour, just let them go play and have a snack. And then we'll regroup. But they'll put their time into it. And then there's just some days where they truly can't handle anything more than like the first round, and we'll just walk away from it and go back to it later on. but it's a different dynamic when you have the younger ones involved.
I ask a lot of these questions because we actually get a lot of these questions ourselves.
Yeah.
And I didn't start with my own kids gaming until later. And my daughter has really no interest in it. You know, she played for like a session or two, and she had enough. She had enough by then. And I thought it would have been easier with her because she was into dolls. So I was like, well, you know, a mini's like a smaller doll.
Yeah, it's just shrunk down.
Yeah, so you know, she was still into that, but she wasn't having it. And then, but yeah, now my son games in one of our games, so and sometimes pops in some of the other ones. For the longest time, he didn't want to be in our games because they get recorded. And,
Oh, okay.
and eventually he wanted to play more than he was concerned about being recorded. So, and
So the
I'm like, don't worry about it. None of your friends are going to see you anyway. And if they do, they're nerds.
uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, we recorded it one time for a friend who was traveling. It was just like bored out of his mind, so we recorded it. And the funny thing was, is the kids were actually like far better behaved.
Oh yeah.
So it was halftime. I'm like, maybe we should just record it all the time. But then it's one of those headaches that we got to be sure, since they're so young, they're not in the shots and everything like that. We're just like, you know what, let's just keep it so we can enjoy the game with the kids. But we do try to just let it be known to people out there who are like, oh, well, I have kids and they're, you know, in the age range we have. It's like, no, you can still have them play. You just got to, you know, tweak things a little bit. And it's really not that bad once you get the feel for how the system works for them.
Yeah, No Thank You Evil is really good for that because it's a lot of resource management, but you get like chits. So like the kids see how many chits they have for each thing, and you're like, well, that's going to cost 3, and they have to give them to you, so they kind of know. It's easier than like just doing the math, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, surprisingly, we'd have it just, you know, simple math for the younger kid. And the other ones, I mean, he's a human calculator. He'll just shoot things off before you can even enter them into your own phone calculator to double check. So for him, it wasn't that bad. But we're just starting to let the younger one, okay, add your dice together. What did you get? And everything like that. And he's getting good. But I got to tell you, with Common Core math stuff, like sometimes he does things you're like, why are you throwing these numbers out? But he still gets the right answer. So we have to chuckle about that one. But yeah, I mean, really, it's, you know, I wouldn't recommend going out and buying, you know, one-shot deals that are made for adults, but, you know, there are definitely games out there that are good to transition them into. I mean, we have Mice and Mystics. That's another really good one for younger kids. Mechs and Mechanics, or Mechs and Minions. That's another good one that we really like because it teaches them strategy with the other players too. So there's stuff out there to sort of wean them into the concept of playing together as a group and role-playing a little bit too.
Have you looked at Adventures Playground?
Took a quick look at it. Yeah, we haven't gotten anything from them yet, I don't think, though.
I mean,
it's on our growing list of things we want to get for them.
BJ Hensley, the reason why she kind of started that was because I guess she had bought Adventures for her kids to play, and she's like, this is terrible. Like,
yeah.
This isn't what they need. And then that kind of like prompted them to start writing their own stuff.
Yeah, and she's done some really cool stuff with it too. So it's on my list of things we want to explore a little bit more. And I know that David's enjoying writing the stories up as well. So I actually will share the notes and everything on my website. So people who want to try and get involved, I mean, it's free. You can download it and go ahead if you want to.
Oh, cool. And for all you folks that are watching, as always, that information is in the description on YouTube and Facebook. So you guys can check it out and go click stuff.
Yep.
Cardboard Fortress, playing with kids is the worst. Probably better if they're your kids and you love them. And also, I've had hard enough time with players that act like kids, let alone actual kids.
Surprisingly, the kids act more mature than some adults.
So, sometimes that's true.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think because we've started them when they were younger, they learn sort of what's acceptable behavior and what's not so much. I mean, you'll still have a tantrum, but then again, you can play with an adult and they'll still have a tantrum. So it's just learning the nuances of it, I think, is really what it boils down to. It's definitely a different, beast to work with, but the end game is still the same result.
We've had a fair share of our adult tantrums over the years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're just starting up doing a game with coworkers. And it was interesting how I was like, oh God, this is the first time I played with like all adults. And I'm sitting like, actually, this is kind of the same thing. So I'm good. Great. Let's keep going.
You still have to do the math and check the math sometimes. And
you still have to balance the personalities and, if someone's feelings are starting to get hurt because their PC is not getting the whatever they want out of it. So it's, it's more the content itself that shifts more than anything else.
Do you get in any online gaming?
I'm probably going to be doing something soon. There's a little something in the works I can't give too much detail on yet. But yeah, I'll be doing something online in about 2 months or so, month and a half. Yeah.
I said, cool. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, I know. It's flying. It's crazy. So I'm looking forward to that one. Been working on building my character and her backstory and all that cool stuff, and I get to be the fighter. So I'm excited for that one.
What's so exciting about that one compared to others?
Because in the past, I've always been like the druid or the one who stands further back and just kind of keeps everyone healthy and sending out spells and everything like that. So it's going to be fun, kind of be the crash in first and slash.
Retro Kung Fu wants to know, to dwarf or not to dwarf? I think you guys know my answer.
Well, let's see. I don't mind because I was a gnome for my last PC.
No, gnomes are a completely other thing.
No, I know.
Some people, gnomes are one of those things people seem to really love or hate.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why.
I'm honestly like, I don't have any like, I can't stand that particular race. I kind of like all of them just because there's different qualities to each of them, and it's kind of cool to see how they work with everyone else. So dwarfs, yeah, I actually get a kick out of dwarfs because sometimes they're that swarthy, cranky type, and you get to work with them more and try and win them over. I don't know. I think it's fun.
So has all your gaming experience so far, it sounds like, as a player, or have you done any DMing?
I haven't done any DMing.
You got to cross the screen now.
I don't know. I've had people ask me about it, but I'm odd in that I like to watch things play out more. Like, I'm even perfectly satisfied just watching someone play a game. I don't have to be part of the game itself. Plus, he gets such a kick out of doing it. I don't think I'd want to pull that one away from him. But, never say never. Something could happen in the future. It's just right now I like learning everything and trying out new things, and especially since we just switched to 5th edition.
What were you guys playing before?
3.5, I want to say.
Okay.
3. I'm trying to remember now. Yeah. So we started off with the books he had in college, and then over his last birthday and Christmas, I got him all the 5th edition ones. So we just jumped over.
How do you guys like that compared to the 3.5? I
like it better, honestly. It's a little bit cleaner and a little bit easier to explain things to people as they're just learning. We had a friend who's joining us for that coworkers game, and she's never, ever played before. And she left that game buying the player's handbook off Amazon that night. So I think it's a little bit more open or less intimidating because there's not all those nuances that were in some of the older versions. But that's not to say there isn't cool things the older versions don't offer that you can't kind of sneak back in if you want to.
That's true. I mean, especially 5e is so modular in its design, it wouldn't change a whole lot to add some of those other things back in.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I enjoy 5 a little bit more.
I've played all the editions, and this one's by far my favorite.
Okay.
Like when 5th came out, it kind of like made me realize what I missed from AD&D going into 3rd edition, but I had to see it again to realize that I missed it.
Yeah. So it's since I'm newer to the whole concept of Dungeons and Dragons as a game, it's kind of fun hearing what the other versions were like and the differences and everything like that.
Well, it's kind of cool to meet people that are newer to the hobby, but they've hit the ground running. Like, so it sounds like you're 2 years into the hobby.
Yeah, I think it's a safe number. Yeah, somewhere in there.
And you're a content creator. You have a website you're putting up content on. You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Someone else who I met was like that as well was Lisa Chen. She's now the Adventures League community manager. But she's only then. It was kind of odd to find out. Well, you've only been gaming a couple of years.
Yeah.
But she jumped in and started organizing games and organized play. So
yeah,
I love seeing that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's good.
Yeah, well, it's the stuff that makes the hobby grow.
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where I don't even think I would have had a chance to learn about Dungeons and Dragons in my childhood because I went to Catholic school.
Yeah.
So, they're like, no, that wasn't happening. But
they weren't big on that, huh?
No, not really.
No D&D clubs.
Yeah, no, we had the Latin club instead.
Well, that's a valuable resource to bring into your D&D game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was one time he was using Latin chants as spells and stuff, and I'm like, that's not what it's saying.
That's funny.
Like, that's not, no, they're just saying, praise God and all this other stuff. And he goes, shh. All right, I'll be quiet. Sorry.
You're ruining the mystique. Every once in a while, I will, like, if I want a phrase or something, I will look for the Latin translation and use that, because everything just sounds cooler and more ominous in Latin.
Oh, yeah, totally. Especially, like, if you drop your voice, like, an octave and it's really low and down. Yeah. Just as long as you don't summon something by accident.
So, you've also made some monsters, right? Just not just terrain?
Yeah, I made a couple of monsters. Did a Nightwalker because we needed one for the campaign, and he just was not finding one he liked the look of. So he asked if I could do it, and I sort of tapped back into my art classes. I'm like, all right, where's the sculpting clay? And I made one up like that. Did a Lich that lights up. That's actually a video. That one's been fun. It's appeared on the table a couple times, and it always looks really cool and creepy because he's just like this massive, glowing, scaring thing, and the kids get a kick out of it. So
I'm a little jealous of your husband, I must say. I wish I would have married him a crafting minion as well.
Right? Yeah. No, it's funny because the second he said there were crafts that he wanted to do, I'm like, okay, I can do that. Let me do that part. And then I think the other thing that really appealed to me was because I have that English major type of thing. I mean, I've been reading Greek mythology and all different types of mythologies and literatures. So it was tapping into stories and lore that I already knew. And it was fun seeing it get all mashed together into other concepts.
Now, did you know your husband was a D&D nerd before he started playing with the kids?
There were rumors of it. He actually went to an engineering school, so I knew that, yes, he had played it in the past. I didn't realize he still had the books and everything until he pulled it out to start playing with the kids. And he's kind of opened up more with stories about when he used to play in college. And he wasn't the DM. He had a fraternity brother who was the DM. But it was, it's fun to see how it's getting more attention now, and more people are like, well, I kind of want to know more about what this is about. It sounds kind of cool, as opposed to, people carrying their crosses and hissing at you instead.
Yeah, the culture's come around a little bit. It's a little bit different now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there are definitely friends who will mention it too, and they're kind of like, you do what in your basement on the weekends? But then there are others, like our one friend's like, oh, I kind of want to learn how to do it. So, we're all for it. It's like, come and check it out and give it a feel, because it's fun.
So Brian Smith, my first child is due in August. How can I immediately get my baby into D&D? Well, what we did is when my wife when we brought my son home from the hospital, we just gave him a D20 and let him drop it on the table.
There you go. Yeah.
You can start with that, but never mind. Take no advice that I give you whatsoever. I'm a moron. Because if your baby puts it in their mouth and chokes,
choking hazard. However, they do have massive size polyhedrals out there now. Yeah. So you can get one of those. They even have them in wooden styles. You could do that. Well,
for a newborn, I think you got to use the foam so it's light enough.
Yeah, until they get teeth and then they can bite the foam apart.
There's that as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's, keep the stories and stuff and kind of introduce them to that type of a concept. And I think it will be an easier transition in, because we would talk about the kids with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and things like that. So for them, the last campaign, the one did name his character Bilbo. So for them, that kind of became like, you mean I can be like that character I saw in the movie? So it's just, start them early and start them with stories and then scooch them in a little bit here and there.
So TrueMate wants to know if you do any mini painting as well as terrain. She's got an Instagram page and there's a link.
Yeah, in the description. I do. Yeah, I do a lot of mini painting, and the joke is that I do it with craft paints. I don't have, I have just a couple bottles from Citadel, I think, but I start off painting with craft paints, and I don't know, I like using them. It's just to keep the layers very thin. That's the biggest trick. But yeah, no, I do mini painting, but there's some fantastic people out there who already do that stuff, and for me, I'm more about the building and the creating aspect. So it's fun painting minis. More often than not, I'll do those on our Google Hangouts because it's easy to chat and paint at the same time as opposed to measure and cut and hot glue and burn your hand in the process. But yeah, minis are definitely another thing that I do.
So Downtime Dad is asking to do the Munchkin voice, V.
Oh, Jesus, David. Downtime Dad is another fun YouTube channel. Make sure you go check him out. The funny thing is that I've always done like different voices. It's just sort of kind of what went with teaching stories because I'd read to the kids in different voices for the stories and everything like that. And the Munchkin voice is something where people are convinced that I manipulate audio to do it. So I just like shoot it into the upper range. But yeah, no, it's common to hear me talking in different voices, and I don't think I need an exorcist yet.
Not yet, huh?
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe later.
It's possible. There is one YouTuber, well, musician that I follow, Lindsay Ray, and she sings metal, and she's just she must have orc blood in her or something because her
something going on there. Yeah,
because her voice is just she can get this deepest, most guttural metal voice, and I love when she does like pop songs.
Oh God, because that's gonna screw with your head.
Yeah, like when I make my kids listen because that's the kind of stuff they listen to. I'm like, hey, do you know this song? Look, she made it good.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Cardboard Fortress says craft paints. No, I didn't know that was a cardinal sin.
Well, for some it is, but it's working for me. They don't chip. They look fine, and people react to them just fine too when they see them. So, really, I think it's more just having the patience to not glop it on.
Can't you like coat it with something anyway and make it stay?
Yeah, you just spray it with some finishing spray and stuff, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, the running joke is that I would start a crafting segment to our channel and be like Dave's crappy crafting, and every episode would end with me going to the ER.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have an e-kit ready just in case?
I do not craft. Like for me, the greatest thing that happened to RPGs was in 3rd edition when they came out with the pre-painted miniatures.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I am a huge fan of not having to paint.
Yeah, I mean, we just got some new minis too that are pre-painted. I'm sitting like, okay, that's about 25 less out of the over hundreds that we have coming our way that need to get painted up. So it's one of those things where.
Did you guys back bones or something? One of the bones.
Yeah, we did. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to a lot of those coming through. Especially there's this one where she's like a demon chicken. She looks fantastic. I can't wait to get my hands on her.
It's a lot of painting. Do you have favorite minis that you like to work on?
I like bad guys. Like the big baddies are one of my favorites to paint, and I also like it when they have wings and or lots of fabric. I'm weird about that. I love the texture detail to put into those. Those are usually the ones I gravitate towards. I'm like, ooh, pretty.
There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's entitled to have their thing.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the ones where it's all repeats, which I'm like, quick paint job. But the ones that are more unique with fun little details, those are the ones I'm like, okay, this is my precious for the week.
Maybe I'll do a channel where I just like, it'll be me with a tool belt, with a couple holsters with cans of spray paint. I'd be like, shh, and this one is done.
There you go. That's all. You want all they're all blue. You're good.
It's uniform. It's uniform.
Yeah, just do a wash to bring out the details, and you're all set. They don't have to have everything on there.
Cardboard Fortress says, do you use crafting terrain skills for any other tabletop games, war games?
Not yet, no, because simply it's mostly driven by what we're doing with the family campaign. It doesn't mean that I'm not open to doing things later on down the line. You know, there's more stuff being shared in my Facebook group for Gaslands, and it's really cool stuff, and it's definitely kind of getting my brain going a little bit too in terms of certain builds that I might entertain doing in the future. Not sure exactly when, but it's been cool to see that coming around as a new crafting trend.
So you guys are pretty much playing D&D now, but do you have any desire to move into other games or other genres?
I wouldn't say no to it. I mean, I know that we every so often they will pull out the like the Star Trek stuff that we have. I forget which game it is, but we have like all the ships and everything. So that would be fun to try and do a little bit more with it. But right now we're definitely more of like the D&D dedicated, I guess is the way to describe it. But it doesn't mean we'll be like, you know, elitist about that only game, because we do like getting other games pulled out for, you know, hey, you know what, campaign's not quite ready to keep going. Let's jump over to something else. So I think it's more a matter of like learning more and landing on something that we want to try, really.
Time is always the big one.
And time is tricky right now when they're in school.
Well, I guess you'll have plenty of time come the summertime.
Oh God, yeah. Although with these snow days, who knows?
Well, yeah, exactly. I think our kids are down to like 1 day for Easter break now,
Yeah, that's crazy.
and and they're going to be going to school till August.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, no, we have 1 day's already getting notched off the end of our spring break. And if tomorrow they don't have school, well, then it's 2 more days that they've lost. But at this point, it's like, well, they've had those days off anyways. Just send them back. Get it going.
Yeah. What are you
It's actually
gonna
at the
do?
point they're disappointed that they have to stay home.
Yeah, my son was like, yes, when he heard he didn't have to go to school, and my wife was like, but you're just gonna have to go longer in the end anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But that really fits his personality anyway. He's like, everything is
Wait
last
until later.
minute.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you want to make that you haven't made yet that you've had to kind of like put on hold as the campaign's needs are having to be met first?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do more with some ice terrain stuff that I have in my mind, but because we don't quite need it yet, and there is stuff that we do need that keeps getting put on the back burner. So there's some concepts I want to try and play around with a little bit more, especially because I like the whole light up feature. You can add to some of it. But yeah, that's something I am hoping I can get around to once things are more, okay, we're set for what we need for the families campaign. And then there's other concepts I have floating around in my head, just, from watching other games being played on YouTube. I mean, with Force Grey, the first season when they were up in the castle in the clouds, like that's another one where I'd love to try and do some terrain that's kind of dealing with that sort of area too. But again, it's time and need and eventually getting to it.
Which stream games are you following?
Definitely we're following Force Grey. That one, because it's like a little bit shorter chunks, works out a little bit better for us right now. Every so often jump into watching Critical Role, but it's always a matter of playing catch up with them, unfortunately. And then I'll jump into Realm Smith has his own group. He'll get his buddies together, and I think it's every couple of weeks he does a live stream with that, so I'll follow along with them. But most of it is depending on when things fall into time and when they're airing. That's where it gets a little tricky. So sometimes they're like binge days where it's like, okay, now let me watch this and see where we've gone lately since that one.
Yeah, the only thing we're watching right now is Critical Role.
Yeah.
And even that's tough because it's like 4-hour chunks.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, I can do it in little like segments if I can to catch up here and there with that one.
Even our stream games are usually only like 2 hours. I don't actually want to be in front of the computer much longer than that for a game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And I think for some reason I enjoy Force Grey the most is because the storyline has just caught my attention right off the bat. The one with Critical Role, we watched like the first two, and it was interesting. It was fun to watch, but it was also like trying to either stay up that late or try and find those chunks of time again later on. That's where it got tricky for us. So it's kind of a getting the highlights reel in a way, and then watching the ones where you hear it was a really good episode is sort of how I've been trying to work with it.
Yeah, for me with Critical Role, while I enjoy it and they're great gamers, it's a little too long. I feel like it's 2 hours of awesome content packed into 4 hours.
Yeah.
Because it's like that's an actual D&D game, and
yeah, it is.
I don't think D&D games are really exciting to watch. But I know a lot of people love watching them. Apparently, it's a whole thing now.
Yeah. But I think it's fantastic though, because it's also getting more people realizing, no, this can be actually a really cool thing to get into, and you can do it with your friends, and then it gives you dedicated time to actually get together. Especially now where it's just so easy to be like, yeah, we'll just put it off another day. We'll put it off another day. Yeah, we'll see the movie later on. This is more like people get jonesing for the next round of the game and seeing where they're going to go with their characters that they've made up.
Yeah, I mean, and that part is definitely a lot of fun, is like watching that the characters develop and unfold, especially in a game like Critical Role where where they seem to put a lot of thought into their characters.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
Nuance.
Yeah. I mean, I'll admit, like, there have been times there are like certain episodes where I've been getting teary-eyed. Because you get attached to them, you really do, not just the people playing them, but the characters themselves.
Now, we completely skipped out on campaign 1. I'm like, that is just too much of a backlog to even slog through. So we're just trying to stay up to date on campaign 2.
Yeah.
Because we review them, but we review them like 2 weeks after the fact, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
just to let people watch it or whatever. And for
Yeah.
Ted, it's easy because he's got like the kind of job where he can just hammer away at the keys, doing his thing and listening.
He's not leaving me alone.
Yeah, it's okay. Cats usually make an appearance on our streams.
Yeah, this is Hemingway. He shows up in the
looks
videos.
really big.
He's part Maine Coon. So they're bigger cats. They're kind of our dogs. And we have his brother Cotton who's floating around somewhere, but this one was just clawing my leg literally to get onto my lap. So rather than wincing in pain and pretending he's not there, here he is.
Yeah. I totally get that. I have a cat like that too.
Yeah.
He has no concept of his claws, or he does and just doesn't care.
Well, he's also a polydactyl, so there's many claws to work with.
Ours is a polydactyl as well, but he's not as cool looking. He's just a little jerk. And he's got a temper too. Like,
oh yeah,
I've had pets that have been kind of mean or ill-tempered, but never a pet that had a temper. Like, he's usually okay, but you ever like play fight with someone and then they get serious?
That switch flips.
Yeah. That's my cat.
Yeah. We have one like that. We call her our cranky old lady. She'll love you up one minute and then she like hisses and bites. Well, not bites you, but she like quickly. So you're like, okay, we're done.
I'll be playing with him and roughhousing with him, and I'm done. And he's like, "Oh no!" And it's not like he'll just attack me. He just attacks. He goes specifically after the appendage that he was playing with, ignoring everything else.
Don't you love it?
Oh yeah. So Zarif Gaming wants to know: have you ever made any huge dragons?
I actually just did something with a medium-ish sized dragon where it's actually a pretty funny story. We got a red dragon from Reaper and it was missing an arm. And it was one of those things where I couldn't fix that with green stuff if I wanted to. So I wrote to them and let them know, this was missing from the package. And I'm thinking they're just going to send me the arm. They sent me a whole new one. So then I had this defunct dragon kind of lying around the house and I ended up chopping it into pieces and turning it into a water dragon instead.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that actually turned out to be a pretty big piece on its own. So yeah, I definitely have my eyes on a couple of bigger ones too, because I would love to do some stuff with those, for sure.
Have you seen the Colossal Red Dragon from 3rd edition?
Yeah.
I'm like so disappointed with this edition's minis because they're so tiny.
Yeah.
They shrunk everything, obviously to save cost and plastic, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But in 3rd edition, everything was bigger. And I guess obviously like Ted for Christmas one year, he's my brother-in-law, so I had gotten him the red dragon. It's almost like buying your wife, I guess, a bowling ball for Christmas. But and so I had gotten a good deal on it, and I got it for Christmas, and it was going to be at the table where we play at anyway. So, but like that, I don't think the thing has ever been used, but it's still just cool to have.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there are definitely some minis we have that they just look flippin' awesome. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to get around to painting them anytime soon, but I'll still take them out and look at them for a little bit and like, someday, my sweet.
Your standard mini fits in its claw and it can hold it, or in its mouth.
Yeah.
So that is part of really cool.
Yeah, when you get stuff that can do that, that really just ups it up even more so when you're playing the actual game.
And then you look at the Tiamat that they came out, the last one, and I'm like, the Red Colossal just can step on it. Yeah,
I was surprised how, like, it was almost like they, like, I don't know, it was Tiamat's kid brother.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend that had gotten it and was, like, showing it off and showing pictures, and he was, like, so happy, and I was just looking at it, and it just made me angry to see it. Yeah. This is not Tiamat.
Yeah, I've seen people, they've actually like bought like the toy style dragons in kids sections and like then lop off a few heads and stick them on to get more to really the scale they want. And they've been some pretty cool kit bashing, I will say that. There is, I'm forgetting which monster it is. There's a monster in that Bones that's going to be, what is it, 2019 they're coming out?
Oh, yeah, they do have their version of Tiamat.
Yeah. So that's one I'm interested to see what it looks like when it comes out.
Although, or do they? Is it another one? Or?
It's another. I'm trying to like. I'm picturing in my head, but I forgot what its exact name is. But that one looked pretty sweet. So I'm curious to see how they do on scale with that one, because obviously it's hard to tell with just the pictures they presented during the Kickstarter on it.
Blues Light Painting just showed one off that he painted.
Oh yeah.
Recently, within like the last week. and
I'll have to look then.
it's a Tiamat. He does commissions for painting minis. He
Mm-hmm.
does some really amazing work. So I think it was a Reaper, but maybe they have a new model
Maybe.
for the next run.
Yeah.
So
And there's always so much coming out too. It's like you kind of your I want list is growing faster than you can actually even paint and get a hold of the ones you want on the top of it.
So Snyder Fam 5 wants to know. So I think that's supposed to be 3D printer, foam cutter, or both ANIF.
I have it all.
I don't know. That's not even look like English.
We have a 3D printer, which we do put to use. Basically, 3D printer is another great tool for crafters. We don't use it for just one thing. And like, it's not like we sit there and we print out all the tiles and everything like that. We use it for, well, I need to make this bit of terrain, but I need to enhance it with something. And then he'll jump on, find a file that'll do what I need it to do and print it out that way. And we also do have a Proxen and we have a hot wire cutter too. So they're all just, they're helpful tricks of the trade to make things a little bit easier. That isn't to say that I don't sit there with, utility knife, scissors, and other such things one day and just crank out something by hand. Everything has its own trade-offs, but its own benefits too when you're using them.
Wylock wants to know favorite raw crafting material. Foam, cardboard, wood, etc.
I'm gonna go with Dollar Tree foam board. That stuff is easy to get and I can do a lot with it. That's definitely one of my more preferred pieces.
And folks, if you got questions, let's just throw question in front of it so I know that you're talking to us and not each other.
Right.
Let's see. Georgie, happy to say I own a Colossal Red Dragon. Yeah, that whole run was just so good of the dragons from 3rd edition.
He's lucky. I want to see pictures now.
And as always, guys, if you're just joining us, in the description, you can find links to Vanessa's YouTube channels, socials, website, all that good stuff. So, like, if you're asking questions like, do you paint minis? Well, I suspect that Instagram is full of those kinds of things.
Yeah, I definitely put my minis up in the Instagram account. And pretty much everything social media related to me is the Crafting Muse in one shape or another. So you can always try searching that way too.
And I also saw you also have another crafting outlet as well.
Yes, I do. I have a crochet business that I've had for, almost a decade now. So that's mostly custom orders, and I'll go to shows they're starting up again. So I start doing shows in the springtime and then also in the fall and winter time. But that's something I've been doing for ages, and it's it's one of those things where I get out and I get to meet other really cool artists in the area. And it's a lot of fun that way.
Retro Kung Fu wants to know, what did you find the hardest to learn in D&D?
In D&D, it was probably keeping track of the nuances in terms of how certain things worked, spell-wise, attack-wise, when you can act, when you can't act, when you have to, let things progress based on initiative and everything like that. That was probably the biggest adjustment, because I'm thinking, well, you can just throw the dagger right then and there. Why would I wait for someone to do something first? That was, for me, I think, the biggest hurdle to get through.
Oh, the turn-based action system?
Yeah.
The language in 5e is really nuanced too. Like, I think if you play it casually, you don't recognize it quite as much.
Yeah. There's definitely sometimes you have to reread. It's like, I hope I'm reading that the right way. But still, I mean, I am definitely enjoying the new system. That's for sure.
I think, for us, one of the things we struggle with is like coming up with topics to talk about for new players and new GMs sometimes. Mm-hmm. Because we just feel like, because we're so far removed from that.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's hard to remember what that was like.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I was introduced when I was 12, so that was
See, I find that amazing. Part of me would have loved
30 years ago.
Yeah, I would have loved to have gotten into this much earlier in life, but like I said, I was definitely not even in the right type of environment to ever be exposed to it.
Well, you know what too, and it's also a totally different environment today, gaming, than it was then as well. So.
Yeah, definitely.
That was the Wild Wild West.
Yeah, right.
of gaming.
By the stealth of night in the basements below, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like when I think about like our earliest gaming, I remember more things, not so much about the game, but like playing on someone's porch or deck or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like we were playing a game for a while, and then we decided to like do something else, and I left my Conan box set sitting on the deck to the pool, and a wind came and blew like most of it into the pool, and like trying
to save it.
Yeah, spread things out and have it dry.
Oh God. Well, it probably got a nice weathered look to it afterwards, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh jeez.
So DM Insomnia wants to know, with all the snow days, are the kids inspiring any good crafts?
Yes, but yeah, ways to keep doors from opening or slamming on each other, something like that would be cool. No, I mean, honestly, when the kids are home, they actually will start playing Minecraft, and they're coming up with concepts too, where sometimes you see what they're doing, you're like, that's actually really kind of fun. So I'm trying to get them to, hey, you want to do this with mom today because I'm going to be crafting, and they're kind of like, nah, not right now. But hopefully later on I can use them for sources.
Cheap child labor.
Yeah, right. Here, you paint this, you do this. But
primer,
they have fun.
Primer, lots of primer.
Yeah, right. That's not a bad idea. When it gets warmer out, just send out the older one with a spray can. Here, have fun. Just spray.
They come back in and the mini's splotchy, but they're covered.
Right now, just throw them in the pool. Hey, go clean up before you come in the house.
Well, I remember many times, like, as a kid, my mom was like, strip down to your underwear, and I was getting hosed down outside.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there have been days in the summertime where it's like, nope, not happening. You're just getting, like, a quick wash down, and then you can go inside the house.
We have to stage this. Gary Smith has a good question. I'm late to the game. Have you made props for DMs or just terrain and minis?
Starting to work on some gaming accessories. I've made a couple of dice towers, and we also made it's the magical dice box as opposed to like a timeout jail type of thing. It's more like this box looks like it has a magic glowing crystal in it. So you put your dice in there if they're misbehaving, and you let it sit for sometimes it'll take a couple rounds, and then you can take your dice back. So the kids kind of see it as a more positive thing as opposed to like, oh God, I did really bad, and now my dice are going to jail type of thing. So I've done stuff like that, and I do have plans for other things in the works, that's for sure. And I have a playlist that I've started up for that too, so if anyone wants to check that out.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Georgie wants to know, you've recently done a collaboration with D&G, and would you think of collaboration with the Guildmasters?
I'm open for any type of collaboration because I like the dynamic of bouncing different things off of each other and using each other's strengths to really create something that comes out looking pretty darn cool. So, if someone wants to collaborate, hi, I'm totally for it.
Again, socials and website are in the description, so you can stalk Vanessa that way, in a good way, though.
Yeah, right? Please.
Not in a creepy way. Oh, so what is the collaborations you did?
What we did was, because he knew ahead of time that our family game was going to be ship heavy, because for most of it we're having our PCs traveling on a ship, he offered to build a couple piers for us. And I kind of said, well, only if we can turn this into videos so that you can get something out of it besides just making something and then sending it on its merry way. So he built a wooden pier and a stone pier. And then I got to paint them up. And that's really fun because he's fantastic about adding all these little details in that have more of a realistic touch to it. And then just being able to put paint to it and adding more to it. That was really fun to do. I enjoyed that process a lot.
So it's right now DNG. Who is that?
Dungeons and Glue Sticks, and
Okay.
He has a YouTube channel as well. It's John. He does a lot of live streams of the builds that he'll do. Right now he has a Floating Wizards Towered live stream that he'll do every so often. He's just started getting back into doing tutorials too, so people can see how he does the techniques for his live stream builds. So it's definitely a channel worth getting over there and checking out, especially if you like the really detailed, the really cool fantasy with that touch of reality blend for your builds.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I admittedly I do not watch many crafting channels because I do not craft.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's just it. It's like I don't watch too many DM channels simply because I'm not the DM, but I mean, there's definitely a few guys I do enjoy watching as a result because they just give some really interesting bits of tips and information.
When I do watch it, it's to me it's like watching magic or sorcery happen.
It's Bob Ross.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's fun though. It's also just again, everyone comes from their own approach, and it's so dynamic too. So even though we all kind of have the same end result in mind of putting something on the table, how everyone creates their own pieces. It's neat to see. I'm like, I never would have thought of that.
I've always said like I definitely would love to play in those games. I just wouldn't want to run those games.
Yeah, a little bit too much.
And then I always wonder if there's like the trap of getting stuck into the game where you like, all right, I made this stuff. We were absolutely using this stuff tonight.
Oh, like railroading, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, at least from my experience and seeing what my husband has to do, a lot of what helps is having terrain that's quick and easy to shift around and be modular. So instead of having a piece that's dedicated to, and here is the, the bad guy's layer, and everything in there is all related to the bad guy, it's more like, okay, well, you take this piece of terrain and you grab that other piece of terrain and quick put them together because someone decided to take a left turn instead of the right turn as you were hoping they would do. So if people are trying to get into the whole having terrain, make sure it's terrain that you can adjust accordingly, and then sprinkle in those more special bits, surprise bits, the wow bits, because that gives you a lot more flexibility in the long run.
Now, I imagine if you're the crafter and you're actually making stuff, it's a little bit easier than, say, I just dropped $1,000 on Dwarven Night. I've got this dwarf forge here, and it is all caverns. You're not going into a man-made structure ever.
No, it's definitely, there have been some pieces we've just bought them outright because they're there, they're quick, and the price was right. It's something where it's like, well, for the time I'd have to put into creating it, just spend the $10 at Michael's to get that piece. But then there's other things like the dungeon tiles and the terrain pieces. It's, I think it comes to maybe about $10 to $25, depending on the scale that you're building and how many of them you make.
I remember the last time I used like terrain, like I put out all these like crystal formations and this like temple altar looking piece, and it was kind of like in a cavern. The players never left the cave going into that area until so the fight never happened where the cool stuff was. It was all like in that in the tunnel leading up to it.
Yep. Oh geez.
Like they figured they figured out how to kite the enemies into like coming into where they were.
Yeah. No, we've had that happen to our game a couple times where he has a tell. I'm not going to tell what the tell is, but he has a tell, and I can tell like, oh, he wasn't planning on that one. But again, just having the pieces where you can shift it around, he was able to, quick step and fix it and change a little bit. And then when you find out afterwards what was supposed to happen, you're like, oh my God, would have never known.
Yeah.
But, it's definitely, it adds a lot. And I think because we play with the kids, it helps having those terrain pieces and having the interesting looking things just to kind of keep their focus more table zone.
So with the kids being that age, do they play it more like a board game, or are they kind of like figuring out role playing?
No, they're starting to figure out the role-playing thing, especially like the new thing we've just started is when it's like they have had a successful roll and they get to do the final kill. It's now on their shoulders. Well, how is this going to happen? And they'll be like, well, first I do this, and then I pull out of this, and then I'm going to say this, and then I roar. So they are getting into it. And the younger one loves doing intimidation when we're meeting new people. So we're trying to get him to learn, like, no, you can actually speak to people and be diplomatic. You don't have to be like, tell me what's going on. He will fall into that pattern every so often, but they're getting those nuances, and it's fun to see it developing.
My son's 17 and he barely role plays at all. So.
Oh yeah, I think it's comfort level, and I think it's because they both see us being goofy and into it with our own characters, and my husband will do different voices and everything too, and that helps them feel more, oh, this is okay to do. This is how it works.
And well, I guess in our table, like we have like a wide range of how people play the game.
Yeah.
So, depending on what your comfort level is, if it's a little odd for you to role play and do voices and stuff like that, if everyone else isn't doing it, I think it's going to be harder to fall into that.
Yeah. And I think you find your comfort level too, just depending on the group. I mean, the first session we had with the coworkers, it's one of those things I was like, well, so I was like, all right, this isn't quite the place where I can do my random voices and whatnot. So it's just let it, speak more like we're adults interacting with each other and coming up with a plan, as opposed to, throwing on this accent or anything like that. It just depends on your group. And you have a good group when your group is sitting there and it's 5 hours later. And if you feel like you're playing with a group and you're like, it's only been 5 minutes, but it's felt like 5 hours, well, that might not be the best fit for you in the long run.
That's funny, because now I'm thinking about like the coworkers game, and you're like, yeah, I don't want to go into the voices, and then and for that to be their experience of like, okay, what did I just get myself into?
That's like, oh my god, my boss's wife is nuts.
Yeah. Well, you said he does voices when he DMs. Does he pull back on that?
He tones that down a little bit too with the adults, because with the kids, I mean, it's absolute ham factor. It's, I'm going to talk like this. And, they sit there giggling and laughing. But if you start doing the adults, they're kind of like, you're doing what now?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
at least with the ones we were playing with, it was kind of like, okay.
Or were you starting to get that reaction from them when they didn't really understand? They just want to roll dice and...
Yeah, so I think it's also, I think as everyone gets more into their groove, it'll probably come out a little bit more.
That's when you kind of like start pushing in the direction of streamed games, so they can see other people kind of doing the silly stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
And then they can come back at you guys and be bad. Why weren't you doing the silly stuff?
Yeah. Oh, please. I'm constantly talking about with the one person. It's like, you got to check out this channel and you got to check out this channel. And this one comes on at this time. And and she's like, you're crazy. I'm like, I know, but it's fun.
Yeah, you don't even need the TV anymore. Forget about it.
Yeah, right? Cable. You really don't.
Do away with cable. So Brian wants to know, do you put your crafting skills to work for Halloween? Do you make some awesome costumes?
Yes. It's my favorite holiday.
I was going to guess that.
Yeah, no, we have a lot of fun, especially because the kids' school has trunk or treat, because where we are, it's like farmland. So trying to trick or treat for most kids, it's like you have to hike a mile to your next neighbor. So they do trunk or treat. So you have fun, like decorating your trunk. And then we always try to just do really some fun costumes with them. And there was one year, it was like the whole Lord of the Rings theme, and made my husband's costume because he was Gandalf the Grey. Little guy was Bilbo, and the older one was Gimli. So had fun. Like I made their beards and everything like that. So definitely put that one to use.
Oh, cool. Ron wants to know, are there any fantasy books that inspire any of your crafts of gaming? If so, what ideas, what books?
That's actually a really good question, because I'm such a freaking bookworm. It's bad. I used to love, well, I still do. I loved reading fantasy stuff as a kid, and a couple books, like they still stick out in my head. One was a series, it was called The Dark Angel. And it was basically this place where it was like desert terrain, but then you had like this mountainous terrain and different cultures and everything. So that stuff kind of sticks in the back of my head in the descriptions, that I know I'm definitely tapping into that. There was another book called The Crystal Griffin. And again, kind of a similar concept where it was these different planes and these different areas. So I know that reading all of those and kind of getting that mental picture, because those are books I must have read like 20 times over again, using those kind of tap into, in my mind's eye, how I'm seeing certain things develop because of the fantasy background those had. And then there's a huge list of other ones going down the line that I'll definitely kind of look back into and be like, oh, I remember that. I want to try doing this with it. For sure.
That, that's one of my most recent laments is I don't read as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And I just really struggle with it. And it's worse because I have terrible retention. So, like, I read it, I enjoy it, and then it's just gone.
Yeah.
But anymore, it's like I have books piling up, and I just can't seem to find the time or get myself to read them.
Yeah, I just got introduced to the Drizzt series, so I just finished book 1. So I got to start getting into the second one. And that was actually neat to start learning about Underdark.
Wait a minute, what did you say?
Drizzt series.
Drizzt.
Or how do you say it?
I say Drizzt, but apparently, why do you say Drizzt? Because your husband says Drizzt, right?
No, because that's how it translated in my head when I was reading it.
Okay. So when I was
what are the other variations?
Drizzt. Everyone else calls them Drizzt, including RA, but I think they're wrong. And so there is a place in that series somewhere, if you keep reading, where someone phonetically spells out the name and says it, and they say, "What is a Drizzt?" Right. And I'm like, well, that's how our group has always said it. And our group is notorious for misspelling things or mispronouncing things. And it's my fault because I'm the oldest. So like they learned a lot of the wrong words from me.
Uh-huh.
And we get so much shit on the internet for saying
Yeah.
things wrong, as you can
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah, I mean, just like, the inner monologue when I've been reading the book, it's always been Drizzt in my head. So, I don't know.
Well, I just thought it was funny because I didn't think anyone else you called him that.
Maybe it's a Jersey thing.
Yeah, maybe it could be.
We're used to like adding more to it than actually needs to be there. Who knows?
But that is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping to get RA on here someday so I can ask him about that.
That would be cool to find out.
So, well, I'm pretty sure he said Dritz elsewhere,
Drizzt. I have to.
and I guess because there's no I in it, but
I think it's like the Drizzt sound. I guess I just divided the two. I don't know, but yeah, I've always been in my head saying Drizzt.
yeah. Well, if you just started with that series, you have a ways to go.
Yes.
There's like 20 or 30 of them at this point.
So I've heard. Yeah, no, I'm about to jump into book 2 and see where we go with it. Yeah, yeah. But that was definitely another cool book where I have a feeling I'm going to be like, going back through and writing down some details, just the way some things were described and everything like that, because it sounds pretty damn awesome.
The other question I feel like I need to ask him is, how does he feel about being, spawning so many Drizzt clones or Drizzt clones in the Forgotten Realms?
Right?
That
would be neat to find out.
Too many. So the Mighty Hob says he always also says it that way as well. So we're not alone.
Cool. Be funny to create a poll and see what people say.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the minority, though.
Yeah, probably. But hey, I thought for the longest time the name Stephanie was Stefania or something like that. When I was a kid, I wasn't pronouncing it Stephanie. If it was spelled with an I, it was like Stefania, and I'm like, okay, isn't that how you say it? No, it's Stephanie too.
Close, but no cigar.
Yeah, I blame that on the Italian heritage, where every vowel gets a pronunciation.
Yeah, or it could be the Jersey thing. I don't know.
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. Well, we are up on the hour mark, and I want to thank you for hanging out with me. Guys, check the description. Click some links. Go follow Vanessa on social media. Check out our YouTube and website. And thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us today.
Thanks. It was fun. Nice way to spend some snowy daytime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. Welcome back anytime.
You're welcome. Thanks. Love to.
So until next time, guys, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy. Bye-bye.